Hello fellow Potter fans, I'm trying to make this quick. So this is a review of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. I was quite impressed, probably the most impressed I've been of any of the Harry Potter films that have been out. And I do mean that sincerely. Okay, so first off we're going to list the negatives. Some of them aren't so much negatives as just things I wish had been done better. Okay, so point number 1. Harry and Ginny. I'm really sorry to Dan Radcliffe and Bonnie Wright, but I'm sure it's not entirely your fault, but there's just next to no chemistry between the two of them when they're playing their romantic scenes together, and it's awkward to watch. And I feel terrible saying that because I completely support Harry and Ginny. I think they're a great pair. I love their dynamic in the book, but it's not there on screen. Ministry of Magic sequence. It was, there was plenty of good stuff in there, and of course they covered what they had to cover. There was tension going on and stuff. Maybe it was just me wanting to get to things that I was looking forward to later on, but I felt maybe it was a little bit too long, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. Okay. Hermione's reaction when Ron comes back after he's been away. That was one of the things I found most interesting when reading the book, because you didn't know what she was going to do, and suddenly she lashes out, and well, for me it was entirely not what I was expecting. I was expecting emotion and hugging and you know, all the culmination of all Ron and Hermione stuff that we wanted, but the vehemence that she lashes out at him with is really, really interesting, and I felt that Emma just didn't bring that. It felt quite weak on screen. That could have been a fault of the writing, because she didn't actually say much, but and perhaps it was a performance choice. Maybe she wanted to play it as Hermione being just so fatigued and over everything, but I wanted it to be much more solid, and I felt disappointed then. I also was disappointed, and I hate saying this, but I was disappointed in the torture scene. There was some good screaming at the start from Emma Watson, but then you couldn't really hear anything going on. It was interesting the way they did it, because they made it very physical and not spells. Like, it wasn't Crucio stuff going on, it was just like like happening to her, which was horrific. But it was mainly actually Rupert Grint that was to fault in this, in that scene, because he was hardly doing anything, I felt. You know, at first he looked worried in that, and he was pacing, and he had some things to say, but then it felt like he kind of just forgot a little bit, and just wasn't saying anything anymore, and he had a bit of an angry face, but that was all. And it was his responses that made it so emotional in the book. And final thing, we didn't see Dobby's grave, and I wanted to see Dobby's grave. I wanted to see, here lies Dobby, a free elf. I was already sobbing. It was heartbreaking when he died, but I wanted to see the grave. You see him get buried, but there's no gravestone. Okay, on to positives. The trio's acting, easily the best I've ever seen all three of them do. Collectively as a unit and individually. So, Emma Watson. Usually I'm distracted by her weird vocal deliveries and her overt facial expressions and her eyebrows going up and down, which I know she can't help, but I'm always watching her eyebrows. But she was calm and centered, focused, really, really solid in most of her scenes, and it made it so much more emotional and just like quiet focus that she was bringing. It was really, really good. Rupert Grint, whoa, blew me out of the water. Rupert Grint, you really did. Ordinarily I like to ignore his facial expressions as well, because it always used to be like the gimmick stuff and the scared face and things, and he had just the tiny little moments, especially in like looking at Hermione and just gazing at her. It was beautiful. And also like his angry faces and his looks of distrust and jealousy, and he was just nailing it. He could have been like a silent screen actor, and I would have been equally as enthralled if he had no dialogue. It was just amazing to watch what he was doing. And Dan Radcliffe, really solid stuff, son. And I've got my trust in him to deliver the goods for part 2, especially in the forest again scene, which is the one I'm most anxious to see. I think he will do it well. There wasn't anything notable really in anything he said that I wasn't trusting, and he was really emotionally engaged, and the chemistry with the three of them, it was excellent, all on form across the board, really, really good. The Harry and Hermione friendship was beautifully rendered. I love their friendship. I love the way that they interact when it's just the two of them and without Ron in there. I've never supported the idea of a romantic relationship between the two of them, but I love them as friends. And there were some gorgeous friendship moments. Especially, I'm sure everyone's hearing about the dance. I didn't know how that would play out. I didn't think I'd like it. I thought that it would send the wrong message. I'm sure it sent a variety of messages to all different people. You interpret it as you will, but I just thought it was heartbreaking and sweet. It was bittersweet, and perfectly timed. The music was really well chosen, and they just performed it so well, and it really fitted. I honestly thought that it would seem completely out of place, but it was. Oh, it made me cry. So I was really impressed then. And as I've said, there were lots of little Ron and Hermione things sprinkled about, just like subtle little creeping under, and it was gorgeous. I'm a huge Ron and Hermione shipper, so it made me happy. Editing. If you recall in Azkaban, in Alfonso Cuarón's film, they had like the fade outs that would go into the circle and fade inwards. This one, there were fade outs in quite a few actually, between like the trio's road trip, going between their camping and what was happening outside of that. And a lot of the time it worked really well, because you'd see like they're doing their mundane stuff, like in their tent or having their discussions, it would fade and then shoot something, and it often was really horrific images. Like right at the start, you'd have the Muggle studies teacher being tortured by Dumbledore, and she's hanging upside down with blood on her face, and it's like just would flash to it, and it was really effective, and you'd be like, oh, and it created a fantastic atmosphere for it. I really liked that. And going on to atmosphere, they did not hold back in terms of setting the mood and this unrelenting feeling of doom and gloom, but also just how heavy everything is in terms of the emotional weight and the physical weight of what they're doing, what everyone else is experiencing, and what's ahead of them, what they have to keep going through. They didn't take the easy road out, the filmmakers or the actors, in how this was presented, and I really admire that. I was 100% happy in how the film felt, if that makes any sense. In terms of book stuff, we all know in the past we've bitched about how they've left things out of the films, and how would they get round to that when the end comes and you know you need to wrap it up. You have to bring these things back in, and you haven't explained what they are, and I guess it could be amusing, but this time round they've just gone, to hell with it, we're putting them back in. If you don't know what it is, well, it's your fault for not reading the books. Ha ha ha. And so we've got the mirror back in there. Where did it come from? I don't know, but it's there, and Harry's using it. And I was just really happy. I was like, yay, book stuff's back in there. Hallelujah. So, yeah, that made me happy. Trying to think. A final point, probably not my final point, but Ron's Horcrux visions, of which Rupert played that scene very well, how he was reacting. Naked Harry and Hermione worked really well. It certainly created a reaction in the audience. We all sort of collectively went, whoa, whoa, okay. Yeah, I like how they did that, and it was good, because it felt like I mean, this is such a cliched thing to say to something like that, but it really did feel like they were making it adult, you know. They weren't going to just say, oh, well, we'll soften it a little bit for the children. It was how it was, and it helped to really, you know, emphasize Ron's state of fear and uncertainty, and how jealous he was, and that was really good. Also on the acting front, I mean, like, supporting stuff was great. Tom Felton, you know, he didn't do much, but what he did was really well crafted, especially in terms of like his facial expressions. Like Rupert, he was really on form. George and Oliver Phelps, special shout out to them, the Weasley twins, when George got his ear taken off. The way they did that was really, they built up to that really nicely too. Yeah, but the expression on Fred's face when he knelt down to see George, it was heartbreaking, and you just thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen when we lose you, Fred? So emotional. Oh. So yes, I got teary many times. I felt so depressed a lot of the time. It's such a depressing story, and I was crying like a baby by the end. And Hedwig, they made her scene was very brave. Rather than just dying in her cage exploding, she did quite a heroic move and she was flying about and intercepted a Jinx going at Harry, but then they aimed one at her and she blew up. So it was very sad, but she went out brave like a true Gryffindor owl. So that's all for now. I hope this isn't running over time because my other one did majorly. So go and see Harry Potter. I will be seeing it at least another 2 times. It's tradition that I see all my Harry films 3 times in the cinema. But I really recommend it. Honestly, I don't think I've never felt this content with what I've witnessed on screen in terms of these stories. So I recommend it. So go